All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining the April Radius community meeting. My name is Will Tai. I'm one of the maintainers of the Radius project and very excited to go through our community meeting with you today and share some of the latest. So a few housekeeping things just to get out the way before we jump in. We want to make sure that you know that this call is definitely for you. We're here to share the latest about Radius, about what's happening and behind the scenes and what's upcoming in our roadmap. So please do participate. Please utilize the chat to ask any questions you might have related to Radius. Feel free to raise your hand if you would like to ask your question via voice, and one of the meeting administrators will unmute you and you'll be able to talk into your microphone. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A at the end. So if you have questions towards the end, there will be an opportunity for that. So we'll go through our agenda real quick for today. We will give you a quick update on any community events or any community related items. We'll talk a little bit about updates to our roadmap and share the latest there. We'll highlight some of the new features and items that were part of our version 45 release that was released last week. And then we have some demos to walk through of some of the features that we've been working on. And then we'll end off with a Q&A. So before I jump in, wanted to put up this reminder of some links that you can navigate to stay up to date with everything related to Radius in the community. So we have a Discord server where there's a vibrant set of folks who go in and showcase what they've done with Radius and also ask questions about Radius. It is a server that is constantly monitored by the maintainer and approvership team at Radius. So definitely utilize that. There's various interest group channels as well. So please do engage there if you have any questions. And then there's a Google group link here that you can subscribe to. And when you subscribe to it, you join the Radius email list so that you can get release notes and community call invites. And it's pretty low traffic, but it's just a mailing list so to make sure that you can stay up to date with some of the Radius releases and community calls. So in terms of community items, we've recently uploaded a bunch of new content to YouTube. So now available on our YouTube channel, which is linked over here in the slide that you can click to. In our YouTube channel, we now have a new playlist called Demos, where we'll upload all the recordings of any noteworthy demos that we've created and recorded for various conferences, various talks. So feel free to go check it out. I think we have 3 demos in there so far. Some demos on Radius custom resource types and a demo on ACI integration, the prototype ACI integration as well. So feel free to check those out. And then this slide is the same slide as we showed last community call, except that I'm glad to say that KubeCon has ended and we had a very successful KubeCon. Ryan and Jonathan from the Radius side was able to attend and talk through some of the presentations as well. And specifically, Jonathan co-presented with Nuno from Millennium BCP to discuss how they leverage Radius to as a part of their developer platform and how they leverage Radius to build that platform for their internal developers. So the session was live and I believe was recorded. So we'll share the link recording in Discord when it's available. And then at the next community meeting, hopefully we'll have the recording link to share as well in this forum. So moving on to Radius roadmap updates. We've made some progress to the roadmap this past release. First is we've successfully completed the Flux integration. So round of applause for the team for completing this milestone. Really awesome. We'll have a demo of this here in a little bit, but it's available in the latest release. So if you're interested in trying out GitOps features in Radius with the Flux integration, please go check it out. The docs have been updated as well. And serverless support is now considered in development, so we've moved it to the developing column. We'll see a demo of this later, but there's been work underway to move the POC or the prototype code for supporting Azure Container Instances, deploying Radius applications to container instances. Like that work is actively being moved into a feature branch within the main Radius repo. So probably in a week or two, you'll be able to view the code in the feature branch and even test it if you feel brave enough to go use a custom build of Radius. So with that, we now have the new updated view of our roadmap. And just to go through some of our current priorities, we're still focused on user-defined resource types or custom Radius resource types. We're, as I said, continuing to implement the serverless container platforms, beginning with Azure Container Instances. And then someone in the community is also working on bringing PostgreSQL into Radius to be configurable so that you can use Postgres as the Radius data store. So those are the things that are currently in progress. And then what's sort of on the horizon and being designed and being queued up next is control plane upgrade. So we're actively working on that as well, and it's in the designing phase. If you go into the design notes repo, you'll be able to see the control plane upgrades, the initial design doc for control plane upgrades being proposed. And control plane upgrades is just the feature to allow for in-place upgrades of Radius. So you can upgrade Radius with guarantees that you won't lose your application state data, and that rollback mechanisms will be in place if the upgrade fails. So the detailed specs should be available online. So definitely check out the design notes repo for that. And then the next thing that's on our radar is application auto scaling. We want to be able to bring in auto scaling policies as sort of top level container properties that you can use. So we'll design that and then get that prioritized for development next. And for our 40.45 release, we're excited to announce a couple of things. Like I mentioned earlier, we've now have complete support for GitOps using Flux. So if you click on the links on the screen here, you can go into the documentation for this new feature. So just a reminder, Radius integrates first-class support for Flux, which, as many of you know, is a popular GitOps tool. Flux is specifically designed to work with Kubernetes and provides a set of features for managing applications and infrastructure through a Git repo. So it's got first-class support with Flux, so you can use Radius and Flux in conjunction to deploy your bicep files. And then two other things that we continue to work on is custom resource types, or user-defined types, as some of you may know it. And then also, of course, the ongoing integration for serverless with Azure Container Instances. And as always, we want to throw up here the Good First Issues links. If you want to contribute to Radius and you don't know where to start, Good First Issues is a great place to go. We have Radius First Issues, the first link here. That's the link to the Good First Issues in the main Radius repo. And then if you're more front end, or you're interested in the front end piece of Radius, there's also Good First Issues in the Radius dashboard repo that you can explore. What's really cool about that is we built in a custom instance of Backstage. So if you're interested in learning front-end development and especially interested in learning about backstage as well, Dashboard First Issues is a great resource to check out. So with that, I'll turn it over to Will, who will give us a walkthrough of GitOps capabilities with Flux.
All right. Thank you. I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay, hey everybody. Last week or last month, I guess, we did an overview of the upcoming features for first-class support for Flux in Radius. So today I want to go over kind of now that it's available, what is accessible to you all as the community, like what's public in our documentation, and kind of run through the how-to guide and maybe inspire folks in the community to help us out going forward because this is a really big area in the GitOps world, and I think it's been really important for a lot of members of the community. So yeah, I just wanted to share the work that we've done with y'all now that it's available. So let's get into it. You can find the new how-to guide down here, how-to guides deploying applications GitOps. We have a little overview page about GitOps and everything like that. Also, I'm gonna Teams optimize because I like to scroll a lot. So let's jump into the how to set up Radius with Flux guide. So the prereqs here are supported Kubernetes cluster, RAD CLI, Radius environment. These are the normal things, as well as some Flux specific things like a Git repository, the Flux CLI, and the Flux control plane components, which you can install in a few different ways. We just kind of link the Flux documentation here to talk about it. You can use Flux Bootstrap or whatever tools you use today. So in my case, I have a Kubernetes cluster or it's just a local kind cluster with a Radius installation, standard Radius 0.45 release, and we have nothing new from the Radius side that it looks like, but we've baked a new Kubernetes controller into this controller component. The thing to note here is the Flux integration requires this Flux control plane component called the source controller. So that's what I've installed onto this cluster. It's a one-line command. Flux install this thing, and we put a warning here because since Radius needs to communicate with Flux directly, and Radius Flux controller isn't an inbuilt component within Flux, you have to specify either this on the command line for testing or setting a network policy in Kubernetes to set this network relationship up. They have some documentation on this, so it's pretty standard stuff. You can do this for testing, and then you can set up a Kubernetes network policy. But it is important to note because this will just not work if Radius can't talk to Flux. So anyway, so now that that's set up, we're gonna do basically what we did yesterday, and we're just gonna, sorry, yesterday. I said last week, and I said yesterday. No, last month. We're gonna set up a Git repository and show that Radius and Flux can effectively just take your application definitions from Bicep in your Git repositories and have them be deployed and reconciled on your cluster. So that's what we'll do. We have a Git repository that I can access here. Let's see. I think it's called Radius Flux app. Yes, this is our application or our application repository. So check it out. Radius Flux app is empty. there's nothing in here, and we're going to go create some stuff and put it in here. So in this guide, it says to create a new directory and create a new Git repository. And now we're just going to create a bicep file in our Git repository. So we'll do that here, call it app.bicep, and paste in our contents. And so what's in this bicep file is very standard. It's just some applications.core environments and an application and some containers. Well, I guess one container. So this is just we expect this to just create one container resource on our cluster and a Radius application. And it references an existing environment called defaults. So yeah, so let's add and commit these to our Git repository. Actually, first, one very important thing to note is by default, of course, Flux is a Kubernetes tool, and Kubernetes tools operate on Kubernetes resources. Bicep, as you probably know, is not a direct Kubernetes resource, right? We're writing some sort of compatibility layer. So a construct that we've added is called this radius GitOps config.yaml, which is a very simple file and file format that will basically instruct Radius and Flux to do the right things for your bicep files. So that is like choosing which bicep files to compile and which parameters files to use and so on and so forth. So the spec for this is in our docs. So it's a pretty simple YAML file that just specifies, say, app.bicep and into Radius resource group default. Cool. So let's add all of these. Let's call it, adding files 1. Great commit message. And then you push to main, which is what every good engineer does, right? All right. So now that we have all these things in our Git repository, you can see that we have our new files, exactly the same as we have locally, and we can now configure Flux to manage our application. This is the same thing that you would do today with any other Kubernetes resources in Flux. So let's do that. And in our case, we want to create a Git source to this Git repository. So we say create a Git source called Radius Flux app. It's our name that we want to call it into the URL that we just showed in GitHub, and then on the main branch. So cool. If you know about Flux, you know actually what this does is creates a Git repository resource, right? So that's this. This is all Flux stuff. And basically how the Radius integration works is we tap into this construct from Flux and we make operations based on that. So if we check, oh yeah, look, it already reconciled. So before we, oh sorry, so much scroll. Before we didn't have anything in this this, what's it called? Default app namespace, right? And now we can see that we've gotten a new container. And we can check that by doing write app graph. App, I think is what it's called. Yep, there we go. So you can see that we've, for the application called app, we have a new container, which is represented on this cluster as a deployment, service account, so on and so forth. So yeah, and of course, if we check in our dashboard, 7007, yep. We have our application and our resource. Cool. So that kind of works like magic, but really what's going on behind the scenes is Radius has a new controller shipped in this release that will monitor these Git repository resources on the cluster and will basically take whatever you have specified in your repository via this config file and all of your bicep files, whatever else you want to specify here. And that will continue, or it will deploy and continuously monitor on your cluster. So let me show that second part now that we've gotten through this. We have successfully gotten our RADAP graph, and let's try to show the continuous monitoring and reconciliation of capabilities of Flux and Radius. So let's update our app definition. You can see from the diff that there's not really many changes. We've added a new parameter called replicas, and we've added this extension in our container definition to specify the number of replicas to deploy. So since we've specified this parameter, we probably want to actually tell Radius what the parameter value should be. So the standard way in Bicep to do this is called a bicep param. So app.bicep param. And we set the replicas to 3, right? And the environment is still default. Great. So this is, if you were to deploy Radius, just rad deploy, this is what you would use, right? You could specify this however, but in our case, we want to update our configuration to support or to inform Radius and Flux about the bicep param file. So you can see that there's this keyword params that we use. Params app.bicep param. Cool. So now we have everything we need. And like the guide says, let's commit and push this, add it, and we'll call it adding files to push. Great. So we can see that in our app, if we reload, we have the list of files from adding files to. Very cool. And we can see on the cluster after some time that we'll actually get this scale up happening. So, but an important thing to note is that it probably won't happen immediately. So let's do this, make a watch. Maybe let's do default app watch. Great. So right now we have one pod, and if we wait long enough for Flux to, because you can imagine that Flux doesn't want to pull from the internet every second, and it's a pull-based model, right? So once you update this, after some time, the reconciliation process will happen. So you can either wait for this manually, and since I'm doing a demo in front of people, I'm going to go find the command to reconcile our Git repository. So this is a Flux command that says, hey, for this Git repository that I've specified, go get a new version from Git. So let's do that and tell Flux to reconcile our Git repository. Great. Okay. And then after some time, we should see these pods start to spin up, hopefully, but it can take a second. Anyway, let's finish up this demo here. So what do? We updated this and we've set our app.bicep param, and there we go. That's basically it. So that's all it takes to integrate Radius with Flux. Basically, the support is built in, and now we are hoping to, in the future, start to move towards other GitOps technologies. So Flux was just the start because that was what we got the most community interest in. But we also have an issue filed here for supporting Argo CD, which should do the same thing, right? We want to specify our Radius application definitions in Bicep in our Git repositories, and then use Argo CD to handle that. So there's an issue here for basically the problem statement, and also there's some context in this issue about how we expect that to work. So yeah, this I guess is a call to action from the community. If this is interesting to you, please do come and like this. And that way we can gauge how much community interest there is. And if you're really interested in it, please let us know, or you can even pick this up as a feature. I think it's the kind of thing that would be really great for anyone to build, since we've already built out a lot of the structure behind how GitOps and Radius work together. So I think this would be a really interesting thing if anyone's trying to get into Radius and start building. So yeah, so that's our call to action. Let me kill this thing here. And that is it. So like I said, you can find this docs into the how-to guides GitOps Flux, or you can just search for GitOps or Flux. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Will. Really excited for the new feature to be, ready there end to end. And yeah, and like he said, please go take a look if you're interested in contributing the Argo CD GitOps piece. Definitely let us know. Like that is a great place to feel for community contributions. As Will said, we've already built a lot of the foundational stuff for GitOps. All right, so up next we have Shruti, who will talk to us about deploying to Azure Container Instances and show us some of the work she has been doing in moving these to a feature branch. So Shruti, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Start by sharing my screen. And please let me know if any of the font sizes are too small. I'm happy to zoom in as needed. Yeah, so we'll be looking at deploying Radius containers to ACI. If you've used Radius up until now, you know that we've typically only supported Kubernetes as a compute environment. So at Ignite in November, we demoed a prototype where you could deploy Radius containers onto ACI, so you don't have to manage any of the servers in the backend for your containers, and it's all just handled through Azure. So we're in the process of moving that prototype onto an actual supported feature in Radius. So a lot of that work is ongoing, but we're hoping to be able to get that out for general use within maybe the next month or 2 months, so that users can start deploying their containers and their workloads on ACI. And I did just want to call out, because we do get this question quite a bit, the Radius control plane itself, that would still be hosted on Kubernetes. So you would still need a Kubernetes cluster in order to use Radius, but all of your container deployments and workloads, that could be moved off of the cluster onto a serverless platform using ACI. And it is in the roadmap to support other compute platforms, but for now, we're just targeting ACI as kind of the first intro step to that. Yeah, so I have my bicep file up here that has all of my application definitions, and that application we're going to deploy is just the Radius to do app. So it's our standard sample app that you'll see in a lot of our tutorials and demos. The difference is that this container that I have defined, that's actually going to get deployed to an ACI instance, as opposed to being deployed through Kubernetes as the backend. So the way we have implemented that is through this existing compute field. So because we've only targeted Kubernetes compute up until now, the only viable option here on this kind has been Kubernetes. We've now added an ACI compute, and you can specify the resource group that you would want your ACI instances to be deployed to. So your Radius environment, when you set that up, you'll specify whether you want a Kubernetes compute or a serverless offering like ACI. So that environment definition is what tells Radius. Now, all of these container definitions that I have, I'm going to deploy that to ACI. So if we look at the container definition itself, I really have not changed anything here from what it would be if I have a Kubernetes compute. So my container definition didn't change. All I just said was I want to use an ACI compute as opposed to a Kubernetes compute. Some of the additions that we needed to add in order to support ACI is a gateway resource. So this gateway resource does exist in Radius right now. The nice thing with Kubernetes is that they provide a lot of service discovery built in, so that you don't really need to set up any of this networking, and the gateway is not necessarily needed when you're deploying containers and workloads to a Kubernetes compute. ACI is in the process of implementing service discovery, so that's not necessarily an option for us right now. And so the way around setting up all of the networking is to add a gateway resource explicitly so that you can connect your container to, an IP address on the as an endpoint. So that's what this gateway resource is doing. It's just connecting your container workload in your samples app to the internet basically by exposing a public IP. We hope that in the future, this is something that ACI will be able to support natively, but for now, we do have to set up a gateway in order for us to do that. And this gateway actually gets set up as an application gateway in Azure for now. So we handle a lot of the backend deployment resources for networking. So things like your virtual network, your subnets, the application gateway. Radius will handle all of that and all of those resource deployments. You don't need to worry about anything. As long as you specify a gateway and your ACI compute, Radius will handle the rest for the resource deployments in the backend. And I'm going to deploy this application. And then once it deploys, we can go take a look at some of the resources that got deployed. So while this is loading, I did just want to call out that the feature branch is available on the main Radius repo right now. I will say that because we're still in the process of moving it from a prototype to a supported feature, it's not 100% supported. So if you run into any errors well, you might run into some errors. And if you do, please let us know as you test this out. But if you were interested in taking a look at it and, working with some of the code, it's on a feature branch right now. So it's open to view. Yeah, this shouldn't take too long to deploy. One other thing I wanted to call out was extensions on the containers. So similar to Kubernetes, we have extensions that are supported, like Kubernetes metadata and things like that, and also manual scaling. In this case, I wanted to set up 2 ACI instances as opposed to just one. So I specified like a manual scaling field here. And once we go see the deployments, you'll see that I've actually set up 2 container instances as opposed to just one because I have 2 replicas specified for my manual scaling. And we do plan to add additional support for things like confidential containers and other native ACI features. That is still a work in progress, but hopefully soon we'll be able to see that working as well. Let's see if this, okay, awesome. So this finished deploying. I'm gonna go to my Azure portal. Okay, so you can see.
Can you zoom in a bit?
Yes, I
Thank you.
definitely can. Is that better?
Yes, this is good.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you can see all of my resources got deployed in Azure. I did have a Redis cache that I specified using an Azure recipe, so that got deployed as it normally does. What I really wanted to call out are these front-end container resources. So these are all ACI resources. So I haven't deployed anything onto Kubernetes. All of my container workloads are now onto ACI. So some of the things that we will set up in the backend are the container group profile and the end group. And then obviously the actual container instance itself. And then these 2 container group profiles and the end groups, that is, I guess, what's required in order for you to actually run a container instance. So we'll take care of deploying all of those backend infrastructure resources. And then we also have the gateway resource that I deployed. As I said, it gets deployed as an Azure application gateway that exposes a public IP so that you can route to this IP address and access the to-do container, which we'll see in a minute. The other resources that I wanted to call out. So my environment was called Radius Demo. As part of the ACI environment, I have spun up a virtual network, a load balancer, and a network security group. And all of this is to help handle some of the inbuilt service discovery features that Kubernetes provides that ACI is working on providing right now. So these do get spun up as part of your ACI environment, but again, it's all handled in the backend. Radius takes care of this for you, so you're not going in and manually setting up all of this networking in order to get Radius to work with ACI. Yeah, so if I go to my public IP on the gateway resource, I can actually route to the IP address and the container that it's running on. And then here is the same to-do app that we typically show on Kubernetes, but now all of this is running on ACI and it's routing through that ACI container instance that I have set up. So I can actually go to the to-do list. I can say, hi, it'll add it here. And then if I wanted to go look at my container instance, hopefully I'm picking the right instance to look at. I think so. I should be able to see the logs on this container instance showing the to-do app adding some of the logs there. Yeah, so you can see there's a post request here. I can go and delete it maybe, and then it should show a delete request, but maybe it's not. Okay, yeah, awesome. So here's the delete request that I just sent through. So it's all happening on ACI. No like Kubernetes deployments or services are running in order for this Radius container to work. Yeah, so that was the demo. If you have any questions, please let us know. Again, we're working on getting this supported, so we're happy to take any feedback or any features that you think might be useful in us adding this. And the feature branch, some of the code does require additional setup with things like managed identity or making sure that the gateway is routed correctly. So if you do find yourself running into trouble, or if you want to start looking at that feature branch and working with it, please let us know. We're happy to spend some time making sure that the setup is correct, because that feature branch is not, it's still a work in progress. So it's not 100% working end to end. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ruthie, for a very very rough preview of ACI, and super excited to see that develop and see it get it in the hands of users to use when in a couple of releases time. Great. So with that, we'll conclude our demos. And just a reminder, thank you for joining. Engage with us on Discord. Go star our repo if you haven't done so already. Join the Google group that I also shared earlier for the latest Radius news. It's a pretty light traffic email list, so we usually just send release announcements and community meeting invites to that group. We also have various social media platforms that I should probably post here, but maybe Reshma can help me out and post those into the chat. And in addition to a YouTube channel that I shared earlier as well. So please do engage with us there. And we'll be back soon with our next community call. And then let us know what you think. Give us the feedback through Discord or any other of these communication channels. So with that, we'll move into the Q&A section of our call, and the Radius maintainers will stick around. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type them in the text chat.